I mean, what we now face is Parliament returning next week on Tuesday, sitting for the rest of next week and possibly a day or two into the week after. And in that time, MPs will have to decide whether they have the capacity to get together to pass a law to stop no deal, to impose a law on the government. Now that means getting control of the Parliament business and getting legislation through in a very short time. Very difficult, even with help from the Speaker of the House of Commons, the Chair, who is clearly outraged by what's happened. That's one thing. It's also possible the opposition could put down a vote of no confidence, but that looks a less likely option. And of course it's now dark at 5 a.m, so autumn is almost upon us. Of course, the government itself is saying anybody who seeks to challenge this process is being unconstitutional. So you've got a kind of culture, political culture war here, with everybody saying everybody else is being unconstitutional. What I think is undoubtedly true is to create a 5-week break for Parliament at such an important moment is clearly not simply an accident. It's been done as a tactical consideration by the government to minimise the chance that they will be stopped and therefore maximising pressure on the EU 27, or at least that's what the UK government thinks. I think the courts will be very unenthusiastic about wading too deep into politics. Of course, the way Parliament is prorogued or suspended in these circumstances is by the Prime Minister advising the head of state, the Queen, to do it. And the Queen has accepted the advice of the Prime Minister. Now, the Queen's decision as head of state can't be challenged, but it's possible the advice will be challenged. Then the question is, will the court view that as in any way against the law? I think it's difficult to see how they will do that, but in a sense, the courts have autonomy, they're free and can choose what cases they see and how they decide them. There's no doubt question this is a mess in the sense that it's a struggle between Parliament and the government. Now this has happened before in England in 1688, but most famously during the run-up to and during the English Civil War between 1642 and 1660. And I don't think this is on that scale, but certainly echoes of that are to be found in some of the discussions going on. Government versus Parliament, with the possibility that Parliament would, if there was a general election, so the government, if there was a general election, would seek to portray it as the government representing the people against Parliament. And that is a very curious place, possibly dangerous place to end. Derogatory it was. That's how bad it is out here. So I suspect it'd be very odd if the EU didn't want somehow to find a way to produce a deal. And actually I think it's in Boris Johnson's interest really to do that, because they and the UK government can't really know what a no-deal Brexit would look like on the streets and how it would form a backdrop to a potential election. So I think there's a lot of pressure on both the UK and the EU 27 to get a deal. Whether the recent manoeuvres in the last few hours and days in Westminster make it more likely or less likely a deal is done, absolutely nobody can know.